This lesson will explore benchmark percentages. Let's have a look. 100% is the same thing as 1 over 1 or 1 whole. 50% is the same thing as half. 25%, we can think of that as 1/4. 75% is the same thing as 3/4. 10% is the same thing as 10 over 100 or 1/10. And 1% is the same thing as 1 over 100. Now, let's have a look to see how we can calculate these different benchmark percents. If I have 100%, that's simply the whole number. So if I'm looking for 100% of 72, my answer is simply 72. If I'm looking for 50%, all I have to do is half the number. 50% of 62, I just half 62 to get my 31. If I want to find 25% of any number, I just have to half the half. So 25% of 20, well, if I half it to get my 50%, I get 10, and if I half it again, I get 5. So 25% of 20 is 5. 75%, I simply have to take my 50%, which is easy to find, just halving the number, and then my 25% by halving the half, and add them together because 50% plus 25% gives you 75%. So 75% of 32, well, 50% of 32 is 16, 25% of 32 is 8. If I add them together, I realize that 75% of 32 equals 24. 10% is simply 1/10 of a number, or we just divide that number by 10. If I'm looking for 10% of 42, I just put it over 10, and 42 over 10, or 42/10, is the same thing as 4 2/10. And lastly, if I need to find 1% of a number, that's 1 over 100, or I simply have to just divide my number by 100. So if I'm looking for 1% of 45, I simply put 45 over 100, or 45 divided by 100. I know if I read that properly, it's 45 hundredths, and that's my answer. So 1% of 45 is 45 hundredths. Now you can use what you know to tackle harder percentages.